a little bit here, going to Corinne.
Sir.
You said, I can personally guarantee that you haven't had any women like me on your show. I have no problem in laying into people, especially if they're just morons that need to be taken down a peg or two.
It's true.
I know I have some invaluable dating advice, and I'll lead with this one. Never believe your parents or the advice they give you about sex or dating.
Yeah, absolutely.
What? That's wild.
Yeah, because, I mean, let's go back in the day. I'm talking about before the internet. I mean, I grew up without the internet. I grew up without any GPS or anything like that. So, of course, your parents are trying to protect you and tell you certain things about dating and tell you who and what not to date. Because back in the day, for sure, they're trying to keep you, like, for example.
Straight and narrow?
Yeah, well, not even straight and narrow. Like, culturally. A lot of cultures will be like, date within your own culture. I'm not dating Spanish men because I could be related to one of them. I'm not trying to do that. But further,
the likelihood of that happening, though?
I mean, it's happened. It's happened. If you're from a small island, it's happened. You've dated a cousin. I haven't, but you know, if you're coming from a place like Haiti, Puerto Rico, Jamaica, there's been a chance that you dated someone that you're somewhat related to. It's happened. It's going to happen. You know, if you're only staying within your culture and your culture is literally an island this big, the chances of you dating a fourth or third cousin is probably happening.
Okay, but how does that apply to parental advice for
because
the
your parents are going to guide you to do things moralistically, as far as like church values, things like that. You know, if you grow up religious, your parents are going to tell you not to have sex before marriage. Now, I don't think that's good. I'd like to know what I'd like to know what I'm getting into before I marry. Like, I'm not like, I made this point earlier today with the girls, was you test out the product before you buy it.
No, my grandmother literally taught us you try the milk before you buy the cow. So I don't know who y'all's parents are. Maybe it's like a Louisiana thing, and they are crazy in Louisiana. But
for the most part, a lot of the people that I've known.
Yeah, but that's advice towards men. They're not supposed to give that advice to women. The advice is supposed to be for men. You go and you test out the cow before you buy the cow. Cow is female.
Okay,
right?
don't
say go test out the bull. She didn't say go test out the bull.
No, she actually. No, she had this thing hanging and it said both things. It said don't buy the pig before you test the sausage too. Swear to God, it said both things. Yeah. Swear to God.
I need to know what kind of sausage I'm getting before I buy it.
Grandma crazy.
They are the whole family. My mom used to tell me, if you're ever gonna smoke weed, just come to me instead. I don't want you smoking cigarettes. I'm like, damn, dude.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
If I was talking to a guy for like 3 years and then we got married and then we waited to have sex and he couldn't please me, then I would honestly probably end up in a divorce because what?
What if he was like good to you in every other way though?
But if you couldn't please me sexually, that's a huge factor. Like, sex is a huge factor. Like,
my grandmother told me, if you wanna keep a white guy, cup his balls while you're sucking his dick. That's what she said.
Oh my God, my most recent. Yeah. That is no lie, actually. I just ran into that.
That's what Grandma said.
I want to know the stat of how many men have affairs on their wives that they married virgins.
It's actually quite low. So your chance of divorce drastically go down if you get married as a virgin male and a virgin female. And your chances of stepping outside your marriage go drastically down as well.
Yeah, that is
not a problem anybody at this table is ever going to have, but it is, you know, that is what the stats show.
Okay.
Well.
So what is wrong though with like parents trying to guide their children in like the right direction?
Sometimes parents can guide you in the wrong direction. For example, if you grow up in a super religious home and you're taught as a man not to masturbate because masturbating is bad, or that, you know, self-love or self-care is bad, that guy is not going to really know what the fuck he's doing later on in life when he's trying to get involved in a relationship sexually.
I think people figure it out.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the point. The whole point is to attempt to keep a person chaste in order to keep their virtue intact. So, I mean, like, from your perspective, I understand what you're saying. You're saying, look, for me, I want sexual liberation and this type of thing. But, I mean, for most parents, they're going to want to try to keep you away from a bad crowd. They're going to try to keep your virtues intact, your reputation intact, because that does actually matter in life. It is part of success in life, is virtue. And that is a thing that used to be part of that whole culture you're talking about, pre-internet, same culture I grew up in. And virtues did matter. And you know what? Here's the thing. Everyone knew who the skanks were in high school. And we didn't treat them that great. That's just the truth. We didn't treat them that great, and they didn't have it great. Just saying. So I understand why parents would lean towards trying to keep those virtues intact for both their sons and their daughters. It makes a lot of sense.
I mean, I'm of the opinion, and my dad convinced me of this just getting older, that the word of your parents is like the word of God. And
unless they touch you, then what?
Okay, well, we
Okay,
can't
yeah.
get into that. We're not going to get into that on the
YouTube.
podcast on YouTube.
I just like don't like the derogatory words that are used for women that are like to have sex, because like there's women like myself that have been through horrible sexual experiences, and that's going to make you act in a way when you're a child and you don't know any better, in a way that people could label you, but that doesn't define you as a whole person just because you like
Okay, well,
to have sex.
let's grant it for a second and say, yes, that's correct. There could be women who have emotional issues due to some type of horrific experiences that they have in their childhood. There's plenty of women who have no horrific experiences early in their childhood and are often also promiscuous. Why can't those labels be used towards those women?
I just feel like using like, oh, those women weren't treated well as an excuse to, like, it's just
For whore behavior?
I don't think that's fair to treat some, like, because what about the men that are whoring around? How did those men get treated?
Yeah, but that's
Probably
what
not.
about the
probably,
men,
They
though?
didn't probably,
Hang on,
they probably
hang on,
didn't get
hang on.
called skanks.
Stop. So just stop for a second. You're making a typical what about the Mendo argument. So let's start first, not what about the Mendo. Why is everybody not mad at the men? Let's start with the first claim, which I don't like the fact that society will use, and by the way, women do this to women far more than men do. Well, the first derogatory thing a woman does to another woman is call her
A whore.
Yeah, that's the first thing that they do. They that's what they do.
I mean,
So
maybe that's
so
your
the thing
idea of what
is,
they do.
hang on. So the thing is like, yes, these things. The reason that these terms are used, you could say strumpet, lady of the night, right? Whatever you want to say, they're pointing out doesn't have virtue. That's what they're pointing out. Not virtuous. And it's a really easy way to use a word to just go no virtue. That's why it's used that way.
You stumped
Do you
her.
have a response?
Can I, Andrew? Do you hold the same views toward, like, do you find men who have like high body counts less desirable, or like they have less value? Do you view it the same way?
Well, so let's dive into this. So there's a little bit of nuance here. I think what you're asking me is, do I think that men who are promiscuous also have lower virtue? My answer is yes. I think that they have lower virtue as well, but not less value in the dating market. It seems that women don't have the same preferences that men do when it comes to a higher body count. They don't seem to care as much about it.
Yeah,
In fact, they often seem to want to compete for men who have higher body counts because they have women all over them, and that's what they're competing over. So women don't have to compete for hierarchy, but they do have to compete with each other to grab somebody inside of a hierarchy. So that's been general human conditioning. So women are always competing with each other. So if women see other women gravitating towards a single man, they tend to compete more for that man. So it doesn't actually lower their value in the dating marketplace, but I think it lowers their value as far as virtue goes.
I was just curious your stance on it in general. But also, women will compete for married men too. They see a ring on a man's
Because
finger
they're high
and it makes them
value,
more.
yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
Which do.
But that's the same thing you're talking about. You're saying they're competing with a man who another woman desires, and that makes them gravitate towards that man. The same thing happens with women when they're going after single men. If they see that he gets a lot of female attention, they tend to gravitate more towards him. Why do you think women are always out with these ugly ass fucking rock stars? Right? They're always because they're super desired by other women, right? Even though they're ugly as sin, like Mick Jagger's not a good-looking guy,
No.
but he's not having trouble. Steven Tyler, ugly as sin. Steven Tyler is one of the ugliest men I've probably ever seen.
He looks more like a
But
woman than
he's-
most women I know.
Yeah, but he's not having trouble picking up chicks.
Dude, Flavor Flav.
I just think it's
that
because they
whole
have
dating
money.
show, are you
But I bet
kidding
if they
me?
were ugly and didn't have money, then they probably wouldn't be able to get chicks.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I agree.
Maybe
but
to
the
some
point is
extent.
why, whether the woman's gravitating towards him because he has money, or they're gravitating towards him because he's really good looking, it doesn't matter. The fact that they're gravitating towards him does not seem to be a deterrent from other women.
It's a deterrent to me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure to some women it can
But
be a
generally
deterrent,
speaking,
but
yeah, no, I
yeah,
gotcha.
just in generalities, yeah.
Wow, good time to return. What did I miss? Anything interesting? I don't know.
Not really.